Hey guys, it's Anthony Romrell, and we're going to do part 2 of building this rock. And so the next thing we want to do is build ourselves a ground plane. So we're going to hit the tab key, and we're going to type the word grid. So we're going to add this. You can see it doesn't visualize the word grid until we highlight it, and then it'll show us the grid. Hit the F key to frame. You can see it can still tumble, track, and dolly, just like Maya. And I'm going to turn this grid into so we can visualize maybe a little bit of ground. So we already threw a texture on here, but we're going to add it. We're going to visualize the texture on the grid. So I'm going to pull out this bottom part and tab in a connection. So we're going to type in UVT, and that's going to be our UV texture. So we'll pull that out, snap, push that down, and we'll visualize it. And I didn't make my connection, so I'll make my connection here. Okay, now you can see I have the same material. That's because the model is receiving the material at this point. So the rocks and the ground get the same material, but we can either visualize the rock or we can visualize the ground. So we'll work on adding more to it, adding rocks to it. But first, let's finish off this ground, make it a little bit more ground-like. So after this UV material, I'm going to pull out and hit the tab key, and I'm going to add, just like the rock, a mountain node. So here's a mountain node. Let's visualize that, and you can see it's the same as the mountain node on the rock. We have some interesting effects that we can do. So if I come down here, I can increase its amplitude, for example. I could go back to the grid and add a little bit more geometry. So I can say I could add more rows of geometry. So let's bump this up to like maybe a 20. I can add more columns to the geometry maybe, and I can go back to the noise node and say, let's bring the amplitude down. It's not so high. So there's a little ground plane for our rocks. Now, just a simple way to add rocks to this is we're going to just throw on 2 nodes, and so I'm going to just hit escape, not have any connections. I'm going to hit the tab key and start to type the word copy. And there's this copy to points node. And what I can do is connect this last line where the rocks have been, pull this to this first connection, which is the items we're going to copy. And then this one is the plane, that grid, and this is where we're going to copy to. You can't see anything yet until you visualize it, but now you can see a number of rocks that are on a grid. So that doesn't do a ton for us just yet, but maybe we want to have a scattering effect. So after this mountain node and before the copy node, I'm going to select this connection piece right here and hit the tab key. And I'm going to start to type the word scatter. And you can see we have a scatter node, which is going to rearrange everything. And it's going to put 1,000 copies of this little rock we made. We don't quite want 1,000 copies. So let's just bring this down to something manageable, maybe in the 40s here. So there we go. We now have 37 rocks that are on our grid and our ground plane. So in the next video, what we're going to do is use the ground plane to combine it with the grid, and then we'll add some, we'll combine the rocks with the grid, and then we'll add some variation to the rocks.